Hello and welcome to Thrive Within. I am your host, Marc Bucksath, a life coach, educator, and someone who's passionate about helping you live more fully, honestly, and aligned with who you really are. This podcast is your space for real talk and focused coaching on things like confidence, purpose, boundaries, self-doubt, and personal growth. So whether you're on a walk, taking a break, or just giving your brain a moment to breathe, I am so glad you're here. Let's get into it. Today's topic of conversation is why we avoid hard conversations. Let's be honest. Most of us don't like conflict. We avoid hard conversations for a lot of reasons. Maybe we don't want to hurt somebody's feelings. Maybe we're afraid of how they'll react. Maybe we're scared that speaking our truth could end up ending the relationship or change it in a way that we just can't control. So instead, we stay quiet. We hope things will get better. We convince ourselves that silence is kindness, that protecting someone else from discomfort is the right thing to do. But here's the truth. Avoiding hard conversations almost always costs us more than having them. Silence doesn't solve the problem. It buries it. And buried things don't disappear. They grow heavier. I want to share a story from my own life. I'll keep it broad because what matters here isn't the details or who it was with, it's the pattern. And maybe you'll recognize some of your own story inside mine. I was in a relationship where something important kept bothering me. It wasn't one big thing. It was more like a series of smaller moments that just piled up over time. And words that stung a little, expectations that just didn't feel fair, and choices that just didn't sit right with me. And deep down, I knew I needed to speak up. I knew we needed an honest conversation, but every time I thought about it, I felt that knot in my stomach. So I stayed quiet. I told myself it's not worth the fight, or if I wait, maybe they'll figure it out. Or even maybe it's just me. Maybe I'm just the one who's overreacting. But here's what actually happened. My silence didn't protect me. It didn't protect the relationship. It weakened it. In that distance, it grew. And resentment, it built up. And the very thing I was trying to avoid, the disconnection, it showed up anyway. Eventually, it all came out. By then, the damage was so much harder to repair. Not because of what was said, but because of everything that just wasn't. And here's what I learned. Silence speaks just as loudly as words, and sometimes louder. When you don't voice your truth, people don't just assume that everything's fine. They assume that you're okay with things that you're not. And that creates a gap between what's happening on the surface and what's actually feeling inside your body. And that gap, it erodes trust. It erodes intimacy. And most importantly, it erodes you. So let's talk about courageous conversations. A courageous conversation isn't about confrontation. It's not about proving you're right or demanding your way. It's about honesty. It's about respecting yourself enough to use your voice and respecting the other person enough to invite them into the truth. When you avoid those conversations, you might buy temporary peace, but it's counterfeit. It doesn't last. Real peace requires truth. And truth often requires discomfort. Think about the relationships that matter most in your life. They're not strong because you've avoided every conflict. They're strong because you've worked through conflict. Because you've built trust by being honest. Even when it wasn't easy. So, if you've been holding back in a relationship, maybe with a partner, a friend, a family member, or even a coworker, I want to give you a simple practice to start shifting that. 1, name the fear. Before you even open your mouth, ask yourself, what am I afraid will happen if I speak up? And naming the fear, it takes away some of its power. And then start small. You don't have to begin with the biggest, hardest issue. Practice speaking your truth in low-stakes moments. Like, actually, I prefer Italian tonight. Or, the deadline doesn't work for me. Start to slowly build the muscle. Use I statements. Instead of blaming, frame it as your experience. I feel unheard when decisions are made without me. Instead of you never listen. And don't forget to pause and breathe. Before you respond, take a breath. Give yourself space to respond from alignment and not from defensiveness. And last but not least, accept the outcome. Remember, you can't control how someone else reacts. Your job is to bring your truth to the table with kindness. What they do with it is theirs. The goal isn't to avoid conflict. It is to replace silent resentment with an honest connection. Here's what I want you to remember. Avoiding hard conversations doesn't protect relationships. It weakens them. Yes, speaking up is scary. Yes, you risk discomfort, but you also risk something far greater when you stay silent. The loss of yourself inside the relationship. Relationships built on unspoken resentment eventually crumble. Relationships built on honesty, even messy honesty, can grow stronger. And listen, I haven't always gotten this right. And there are times I've chosen silence, only to realize that later it cost me more than words ever could. And I'll probably share more of those stories in future episodes, because they taught me a lot. But what matters now is this. Every time you choose courage over silence, you strengthen not only your own relationship, but also your relationship with yourself. So thank you for being here, for listening, and for choosing to return to yourself. This journey of living more aligned, more honestly, more fully, it's not about getting it perfect. It's about choosing courage, one conversation at a time. And if today's episode stirred something in you, I'd love for you to follow the show, share with a friend, leave a kind review. It helps more people find these conversations. And if you are ready to go deeper, you can check out my books or learn more about coaching with me at guidedpathcoaching.crd.co. Until next time, be kind to yourself and remember, your voice matters.